Welcome back to Love and Junk. I'm Laura.
I'm John.
Today we're talking about bad vegan.
So we were over on the Netflix the other day and we started watching Bad Vegan.
The other day, every day.
So we watched Bad Vegan and we just want to talk to you guys a little bit and let you know what we thought of it. Maybe we can start a little discussion in the comments section about it.
That's right. So, if you're new here, hello, welcome. We started this channel right before the holidays, and then our lives turned upside down between the holidays and all the videos we were filming and getting sick and whatever. This is the kind of thing we want on our channel. Reactions, reviews, travel, all kinds of new stuff. So we want to invite you to please stop if you're not subscribed already and consider doing so, and then just watch the videos that you're interested in. We would love to have your support over here.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, Bad Vegan, like John said, is on Netflix. It is a 4-part limited series, and we watched one episode, and then we binged all the rest of the 3 the next day. We got hooked a little bit. It is about this woman who has a vegan restaurant that was the talk of the town. Hollywood
was in New York, right?
Yep. Lots of people from Hollywood. Like, she mentions Alec Baldwin. There's pictures of Owen Wilson and Howard Stern mentions it. It was just one of the hot spots in New York City.
And this woman, her name was Sarna or Sarma?
Sarma with an M.
Yeah. So yeah, she had it made, really. I mean, the restaurant was doing so well. Then they opened up like a second place, which was kind of prepared food for people to go
smoothie bar and Yep.
And like everything was going great. She's making a lot of money and everything. And all the trouble starts, and you know where the show picks up is when she meets this guy.
Here's the thing. We should also say, spoiler alert.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it and you don't want it to be ruined, don't watch this video until after you've seen it. A lot of times when we do a movie review or something like that, we purposefully don't spoil it. I don't know how we can talk about the show and really talk about it if we don't, if we try to keep spoilers out of it. So if you haven't seen it, click off, come back after you've watched it.
Yes. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. She met this guy on Twitter, I think. And her and like Alec Baldwin were kind of tweeting a little bit because he had been into the restaurant and stuff. And then, so Alec was actually responding to this guy and stuff. And so she
kind of thought that he was legit. They must be friends or whatever. It's interesting, the whole Alec Baldwin twist in this story. And I wasn't expecting it and I hadn't heard it. But apparently he was a little bit smitten with her, by her, whatever. Or, I mean, this is how Netflix
portrayed
spun the story. But she was with somebody, and then when he was single, she was with somebody. It just never worked out. But he met his current wife, what's her name? Hilaria or something like that, at this woman's restaurant. So there's that connection too. But yeah, they were tweeting and she thought, oh, this guy's funny. He must be a friend of Alex. And they talked online for a while, and then they finally decided to meet. And I don't know what it was about him. His pictures look different, she said, than what she had seen online. That's not surprising, right? There's all kinds of filters and ways you can crop and make your pictures look a little bit different. He looked a little bit different in person. Yeah,
he was heavier. He looked thinner and, just kind of fit in the pictures and not so much in real life.
Right. And I don't personally care about that, but they made a point to say that in the show. So I don't know where it started exactly. He started asking her for money, And it's someplace in the story they're showing all these wire transfer receipts, and it's 15,000, 35,000, 12,000, 65,000, all within a couple of days. They have the dates and they're like showing the receipts.
Yeah.
It's a couple of days after that. Like, what happened to the $65,000 I gave you 3 days ago?
Right.
Like, it's crazy the amount of money she was giving him. And at the same time, you know, her restaurant is growing and thriving and doing better, and he's seeing this. And the better she does, the more money he's asking for from her.
Yeah. Well, and it all started like after she met him and everything, and then he kept saying things about like he was in black ops, and he was like some sort of agent or something, and she would walk in the room and he would like close his laptop, but not until she saw things like CIA on it and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he would disappear for a while and everything.
And then it was always he was off on work, but he couldn't talk to her about what he was doing because of the kind of work that it was.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking while I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, he's one of those guys. Okay, and then, the whole money thing started after that, and I'm like, okay, so he's a scam artist. That's what he's doing. He's conning her. You hear about those guys or women who are con artists, and they will get in there, get in somebody's head, and take them for everything they're worth.
Right.
And this guy, he did that. But, as we're watching this, I'm thinking, okay, but the title is Bad Vegan. So, like, right now, all I can tell is that she's not very smart. She's intelligent, but as far as, like, with this guy, she's not being very smart.
Right.
So, what's...
People do a lot of stupid things in the name of love or not being lonely or, whatever it is. But she has this dog that is basically the love of her life. His name's Leon. And this guy starts talking almost in, I can't tell you how many times we paused, talked about stuff, and then started watching it again. We've had experience with somebody like this that talks about themselves almost like they're a supervillain, or they believe their own BS. You know those people? Like, they've lied so much you can't tell if they really believe what they're saying or not. This story is very difficult to put into words, but basically there's some kind of religion. It gets very cult-like.
Yeah.
He is part of something that he says that she can enter if she follows X, Y, and Z.
So basically, if she does everything that he tells her, then that will impress this group. And
right, and then she can become part of the family then.
Yeah, and then the dog and her could be immortal.
Right. And, the crazy thing about that, well, several things are crazy about this. She is a part of this Netflix show. It's not just actor portrayed.
Right.
She is sitting there telling the story, and then they show clips. She's very much a part of telling the story. There are phone conversations, all kinds of things. All the receipts and everything, come from her. So you never really know, as you're watching this, she is very skeptical. And yet she keeps going along with it. Like, she'll argue with him and say, well, I just sent you money. I can't afford to keep doing this. And then there's more money given. And there's a really strange part where he sends her off to Rome.
Right. And this was kind of near the end. Like, she had siphoned off so much money from her business and her personal accounts and had given it to this guy. She gave him over $1.5 million.
Yeah, it was like $1.7 million.
Yeah, and the restaurant closes at one point.
Well, this is when she goes to Rome, right?
I think it closed, and then I think it closed while she was in Rome, and then she came back, and then borrowed a bunch of money from somebody and had it reopened. But
another thing that happened, well, I'll get back to the Rome thing that I started to say in a second, but the other thing is the employees are also telling their story. And apparently she was very fun and they all felt like family and they were very close. And now they're interviewing these people that say they see a change in her, and he starts cutting her out a bit. And not only was she the head of the business, she was the chef, she ran everything. He stepped between and took over her emails. He said that he needed all of her email passwords.
Yeah,
and
passwords for everything, access to everything. So he had all of her accounts. He had all of that information. He knew everything. And she just gave him all this information.
Right. So he sends her to Rome, and he says that he has a brother that is involved in whatever this thing, whatever you want to call it, a cult, whatever it is you want to call it, and
something he just made up.
And he needs to be impressed with her and know that she can get through this test. So he sends her to Rome. She has no idea what she's there for, how long she's going to be there. She doesn't have her dog with her, and she just goes open-ended, one-way ticket, just okay, I'm going to Rome.
And he's pretty much, well, you have to stay there until we tell you to come back, and you just have to deal with living there by yourself.
And she runs out of money. And he says, well, you have to get the money. I mean, some of this is her money, but a lot of this is investor money that she is giving him. And so he says, well, we can't afford to pay the employees. That's how it ended up shutting down, it was over money.
Yeah, they all mutinied and left because they weren't getting paid.
Yeah, and he just keeps saying, you have to find the money. And then he starts going to her mother and extorting money from the mom. And I don't understand. This guy did not seem so magical and powerful and whatever. I mean, I understand the mom. If he's convinced her that her daughter's in trouble and needs it and it'll help save her business, whatever. I understand that. I just don't understand at what point she didn't think this. I mean, I think she did think. She said.
Yeah, right.
But here's the thing. Do you trust her? Is she telling the truth, or she's so embarrassed? Like, if you go back in time, as the story is unfolding, after the fact, when she's doing the Netflix special, she's acting as if, well, of course that was stupid. But I don't get the sense that she really thought that at the time.
No, well, I mean, here's the thing. It sounds like she realized at some point, once things just kept going and going and going, and it was just so bad, along the way, it seems like she realized that he had scammed her or conned her out of all this money, but then she just goes along with him still, even after that.
Right. Well, then what happened that they ended up, they owed everybody, all these investors. He took her employee files. And they started, defrauding the people that worked for her and all of this stuff. Well, anyways, they end up going on the run. And he says, we need to just get out of here for a while. They're on the run is what it is. And I don't know, at some point during the story, it's introduced that he's got a big old gambling problem. I mean, a big, big gambling problem.
Right. And so when everything just kind of falls apart, she's kind of explaining to you in the show.
To the viewer.
Yeah, to the viewer, like, so we go from casino to casino, and basically he's just gambling.
And he's leaving her alone in the hotel room to do whatever, and he's just in the casino
24/7 gambling
all the time.
And they would move from casino to casino to casino. They ended up in Vegas, and I'm trying to remember. So at that point, I think she was saying that she didn't know that they had a warrant out, and they weren't necessarily running. They were just gambling.
She was trying to make it sound like she didn't realize they were running from the law. She tried to make it sound like they were running from their lives. Like if we were to say,
Right.
I'm so sick of this house, this pressure, let's just get on the road and do van life, right? How people do that. That's what she was trying to make it sound like, how she felt about it.
Right.
But they were actually running from the law.
Right. Yeah, so eventually it caught up to them. But
Well-
for like 10 months, they were out there just still spending money and gambling. And like in the meantime, he is contacting her mother still.
Right.
And getting money from her. So
The other crazy thing is, and this is a big spoiler, is there's this guy named Will. And all during the show, you see Will, and he's reading emails between himself and Sarma. And Will is this guy's,
like IT guy or whatever.
right. And by the way, he had an alias. That's the other thing. That's why I can't even remember what his name is, because
yeah.
they referred to him by a couple of different names. So anyway, so this guy is reading emails between him and Sarma, and he's explaining how he was assuring her that, oh, he's just busy working. And I'm saying to John, but does he believe that? Like, does he
Right.
really think? It sounds like he really believes it. And how can he really believe it? Has he ever met him? Guess what?
There is no Will.
There's no Will.
There's
It
no
was
Will.
him the whole time. Like trying to be the go-between.
I mean, come on. She had to have suspected that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, she said, how do I know? She did, because she
Right.
said, how do I know that it's not just him emailing
Yeah.
under a different account?
Yeah, I think it's just, you're just him.
Yeah, and then because she said, why don't we meet? Yeah. This is a crazy, crazy, crazy story. The other thing is how they get caught is they go to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And again, he's gambling, and she kind of likes it there. I think she feels it's kind of simpler and less, I mean, it's a little glitzy. It's not Vegas, but
Right.
there's a lot of commotion. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of things going on. And how they get caught is they're wanted and their pictures are out there, and they order a Domino's pizza delivered to their hotel, and then somebody lets them know. So the vegan chef was busted by ordering Domino's
yeah.
pizza.
And it was in this, like, roadside motel, not
Yeah.
some fancy place. So he, at that point, at the very end, it sounds like he blew through all the money, lost everything. They were just living out of this motel for like months.
Yeah.
And, till the end. And at that point, he wasn't even gambling anymore. They were just hanging out in this motel.
Well, and when they got caught, he couldn't make bail.
Right.
But she could. So he served all of his time.
Yeah.
And then she went in as he was getting out, and she served a very little amount of time. And then at the end, she calls him when she gets out of prison, and they play that. That's the very last thing, is this phone call. So did they strike up a relationship after? It was very friendly. Like, he says something like, oh, I was going to call you or whatever. And it's like, didn't you,
Right.
don't you know what just happened? I don't know. I really think that she knew everything. I mean, at some point he kind of snookered her, but at some point she didn't care.
Right.
I think she got caught up in the magic of the lies and this fantasy world and running and escaping her responsibilities is what I think.
Well, and the other thing is, I think it was appealing to her, even though they were spending all this money, they were living a very lavish lifestyle.
For a while.
Yeah, and she was like, probably like, oh, this is amazing, and then she didn't want to stop the lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is, the way that she was acting, and I think it was kind of the last episode where she talked a little bit more about it, but I think she was like a submissive. Like, she had a submissive behavior, and like he could control her that way.
She would try. You would hear in the conversation, she would say something like, it was so crazy. It was so crazy to me. He would say something like, so, and he'd be real aggressive with her. If I tell you to send a wire transfer tomorrow, are you going to do it? And she'd be like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not. I've sent you enough money. And then she would send it.
And he would talk about this happily ever after from that group, that religious group or some
Meaning
secret
like
organization.
eternal life is what he meant.
Yeah, and so, I thought you were all in on this. If you're all in, anytime I ask you to send money, you just need to send money. He had her snookered on this.
And the thing is, like, if this were me and you, right? This is the thing. One of the things that drove me crazy is when she would, say something about money. She would say, I'm not sending you more money. I can't afford it, whatever it is, whatever the argument was. He would say, it's always all about the money for you. And she never says, no, it's about the money for you.
Right.
Like, you keep coming to me for money. And he never says, he keeps saying, oh, it's just sitting on a shelf. It's just sitting there.
Yeah,
Nothing's
I haven't spent it. It's just on a shelf.
Then why do you keep needing more and more and more?
Right.
Crazy. And then at the very end, it tells how much debt they had to, here's how much to investors, to employees, to taxes, like all kinds of stuff.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah, wasn't it like almost $7 million, I think
so.
Something like that. So that they owed, in addition to the $1.7 million he took from her.
Right.
So he conned her out of a lot. Oh, and one of my favorite parts is, I don't know about favorites because it's actually sad, but everybody has a past, right? And who do you never want to turn up from your past is an ex-spouse, right? Especially if you're a bad guy. You're a bad dude. You don't, if your ex-wife is involved in the project, she's gonna tell all your stuff, and she does. He took off. What was the story? His dad had a heart attack or was having surgery or something, and they were all at the hospital, and she had to leave because their daughter had a baseball game, softball game, soccer tournament, something.
Right.
So she leaves to go do that, and he says, yep, I'll meet you. She never sees him again.
Yeah, never sees him again. And, at the end when, she is told or whatever, reacts to what he's done, she was like, yep, sure sounds like him.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah, I wonder who else he's scammed, though. And that's not part of the story, because when he is first getting into her life, he takes her to different places, and he has money, and he's being flashy about it, and he's saying about how rich he is, and he's saying about how he's has these black ops missions and all that. But it's like, who is he scamming to be able to do those things before she started giving him money? Which
also, you would know this with your military background more than I would, but I never think of, this is a complete stereotype generalization, I understand, but I never think of somebody in the military and say, they've got to be worth millions because they're in the military.
Right.
My dad retired from the military. It's absolutely no shade. It is a very noble profession. It's not a knock. But I don't look at people in the military and say they've got to be rich.
Rich, right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense. It didn't matter what he was doing in the military. How is he millions and millions and millions of dollars of disposable income? It just didn't make sense. At all. If he would have been an investment maker, I maybe would have. It's like he picked the wrong lie for it to even make sense from the beginning.
And then it's funny, she doesn't even mention anymore about him dropping the whole black ops thing and not telling stories about that or anything. He just goes from black ops
to they're on the run.
to this group. And then they're on the run. And it's like, what?
None of it's believable. I can tell you so final thoughts. I think it's worth watching. I think it was interesting. I like that it was only 4 parts. I think they said everything they needed to say about the story in 4 parts, unless there's stuff I don't know.
Unless there's more.
I think it was believable that this happened. I think she's not believable. I think she is full of it.
Yeah.
I think she knew.
Completely minimized her part in all of it.
Yeah. She didn't want to make herself look bad. She wanted to cooperate with the Netflix show.
I'm sure they paid her.
Right. So that she could put a bit of a spin on it. Although I saw something today and I didn't want to read it because, no, it was yesterday. It was before we had finished. I didn't want to read it because I didn't want to be poisoned. But she said something about like they got their relationship wrong. But she's involved
in the show?
Yeah, but she's involved in the project, right? So she's telling them how the relationship was.
Right.
I don't know. I know that there's creative license with every story and all of that. But anyway, I'm so curious if you have watched it. Do you think you would recommend people to watch it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was good. If you like true crime stuff,
right?
And, you'd like that.
And you didn't really know anything about it going into it. I didn't either. I heard a little bit about it once it got put on Netflix, but I had never heard the story like back in the day, so I didn't have any preconceived notions about it. Interesting story. We love reality shows about. We've watched a couple different ones about restaurants, and we love cooking shows and whatever. It's not so much about that.
Right.
It's it's kind of the background, but true crime we love as well. So it kind of marries two of our interests.
Yeah.
So I would say check it out. Let us know what you thought of it. If you've watched Bad Vegan, it's on Netflix right now. It was the number one. I'm not sure if it still is. But
yeah, I don't know either because Bridgerton came back out, so I'm sure that's number one now.
We got to hurry up and get on to that business.
Yes.
Let us know what you're watching on Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus or any of the things right now. We're always looking for a new good show to watch. So if you're not following us on social media, please come find us. Subscribe to this channel as well as our food channel as well as our game channel. We'll put links for all of that down in the comments. Let us know what you thought of this one. That's all we have for today.
That's it, guys.
See you next time.
Bye.